Alright, let's continue with the tutorial. Now we will add the buttons to close, maximize and minimize the window. So, in the control bar panel, we add a button to close the window, and in the same way as the navigation menu buttons, we will create a style for the control bar buttons. So we go to the resource dictionary of the button styles, and we copy the style of the icon and button to not do everything again, since the style that we will create is similar. We changed the target type to button. We replaced the height with a width of 35. In this case, the margin is not necessary, so we remove it. The background and foreground color stays with the set values, but if you want you can change them. The border color is not necessary either, so we remove it. In the template, in the same way, we change the target type to button. In the border we set a corner radius of 4, and we remove the border thickness and border color property, since as I said before, in this case it is not necessary. Finally, we center the content of the button. Now onto the style triggers. We remove the style of the activated button. Since the button does not have this property, it would also make no sense to activate a close or minimize button. Well, in the style of the button, when the mouse is hovered over the button, we only change the background color and the foreground color. In the case of the foreground color, we bind the property to the tag property of the button, since in the same way as was done in the menu button, we will store a color from the color palette in this property, in order to change the color of the icon when hovering or leaving the mouse pointer of the button. So in the icon style, we bind the icon's color to the button's foreground color property. Then we change the size to 9, and remove the margin. Okay, we save the changes and return to the design of the main view. We set a name to the button, for example close button. Then we set the style. Well, I don't have any style suggestions for this type of control. Well, it's because I didn't change the name of the style, and the first style with this name is for the radio button type, so it's not possible to use it on a button. But once changing the name, we can already refer to the style. Well, in the tag property, we store a color from the color palette. For the close button it would be a reddish color, for example color 4, color 6 for the maximize button, and color 8 for the minimize button, or you can define other specific colors for these buttons. Then we subscribe the click event to close the window. We will add the code later. Finally, we define an icon image, set an icon and style. Well, the color of the icon is not set or changed. Apparently I still have some errors. Here in the ancestor type it should be of type button. The icon color is already set, but it still doesn't change the icon color on hover. Well, the tag property isn't found on an ancestor, it's on the button itself, so here we set the source relative to self. Okay, now the button styles work correctly. Because of these things, it is sometimes not a good idea to copy code, although many times it speeds up development, but sometimes they only cause problems like what is happening to me now. Well, now in the same way as before, we add the maximize and minimize button. Okay, there is no problem with the buttons, but the icon of the minimize button is very small, so it is not very visible. To solve this, we can increase the size, for example to 12. Some properties that are set on the window design take precedence over the style, so you can change the value of a property to override the property set on the style. Okay, now we code the click event of the buttons. In the close event, we simply call the application's shutdown method. In the minimize event, we set the state of the window to minimized. And finally, in the maximize event, if the window is in normal state, we maximize the window, otherwise we restore the window. Okay, all the elements of the control bar of the window work correctly. Now we will design the header of the content section. We define a grid, and specify that it be located in the second row of the grid of the main section. Then we define two columns of proportional width, that is, that the first column occupies 50% of the width of the grid, and in the same way, the second column occupies 50% of the width of the grid, and as I said before, for it is not necessary to specify the size explicitly. Well, firstly, in the first column we will design the title of the content section. For this we define a stackable panel, optionally we specify that it is located in the first column. In orientation we set it to horizontal, and in the vertical alignment we set it to centered. Then in the panel we define an icon image for the child view icon. For now we set any icon as we will bind to the child view icon to be displayed in the content section later. We set a size of 20, we set the color of the icon, in this case the title color 2 defined in the color resource dictionary, and finally we set a margin of 35 on the left and 10 on the right. Then we define a text block for the content title, we set any text, since later we will also bind to the title of the child view that is going to be displayed in the content section. We continue to set the appearance properties, such as the font and vertical alignment. Alright, that's it. Now in the second column we will design the user options. In the same way as above, we define a stackable panel, we specify that it is located in the second column, we set the orientation of the stacking to horizontal, we reverse the flow of the direction, for this we set the property to right to left. In vertical alignment we set it to centered, and we set a margin of 10 to the right. Okay, now on the panel we add a button, and in the same way as the control bar buttons, we will create a style for the user options menu buttons. I will copy the style defined above to speed up the tutorial, and this time I hope I don't make any mistakes. Well, we changed the name, for example icon button. We changed the width to 25, we set the cursor property to hand. We keep the background color transparent, we set the foreground color to a lighter color. In the control template, we only remove the corner radius property. Now when the mouse hovers over the button, we'll only change the foreground color, but if you want you can also change the background color like we did in the control button style. Okay, finally on the icon, we just set the icon size to 16. So, we set the style of the button, and in the tag property, we save a color from the color palette. I'll start with color 1. Finally, we define the icon of the button. Now we define a text block to display the user's name. In the previous tutorial we already get and set the user data in the view model when the user logs in, so here we bind the text property to the display name property of the current user in the view model. Well, we continue to set the appearance properties of the text block. Okay, now we define an ellipse to display the user's profile picture in a circular shape. We set a size of 35. We set the border color. For this we use the stroke property. We also set the border thickness to 2. We set a margin of 10 to the left and 10 to the right. Finally, we fill the ellipse with the user's profile picture. Here it should be binding to a property of the view model, just as it was done with the username. But as we saw in the previous tutorial, we do not have this data, so I'll just set an image that I added to the project before starting the tutorial. Well, now we add other icon buttons. Great, the color of the icons changes on hover. However, this icon looks really big to me compared to the text on the side, so I'll reduce the size a bit. Well, to finish the tutorial, all that remains is to design the content section to open and show the child views. So in the third row of the main section grid we do the following. We define a content control, set the content property, leaving it empty for now as we don't have any child views yet. We specify that it is located in the third row of the grid, and finally we set a margin of 25 at the top, so that the header is centered since the control bar has a height of 25. Then we set the other margins as we want, or we can set a margin of 25 on all sides, in order to design the child views without worrying about the margin, since the content control will be the one who sets the margin, and it will make the child view not too close to the borders. Alright, now we will show the child views in the content section using the MVVM pattern. To do so you need an object of only one type, and the trick is in the base class of the view model, since all view models inherit this base class, and all views have their view model. So we add a view model class, for example for the home view. We set to public class and inherit the base class of the view model. In the same way we are adding all the view models that we want. Okay, here you will obviously have fields, properties, notifications and the view model commands, just like we did for the main and login view model in the previous tutorials. Well, for now we save and close. Since I won't be loading data into the view, there is also no need to implement the properties or commands to show the view. Well, now we add the views, for example the home view. For the child views we use user controls. And so we are adding and designing all the child views of the application. Well, I'm done with the design of the home view, so as not to take too much time, here I just added an image of a dashboard template. This image is located in the Images folder of the application, and I created it in PowerPoint using the chart tools, shapes, and the same color palette of the application. I was thinking of doing it in some design software, but in this case PowerPoint is the best option as it allows you to easily create and design charts. In the customer view design, I added an icon, a text box, a button, and a data grid. Well, as I said earlier, to show child views and control content using the MVVM pattern, you need all view models to inherit the base class of the view model and define a property of this type. So we go to the main view model, and just as we did with the current user account property to display the user's name in the main view, we define a field, the property, and the property change notification. So, we define a field of type base view model for the current child view, define another field of type string for the title of the child view, and define a field of type icon character for the icon of the child view. Then we select these fields and generate the properties. Now, in the current child view property, every time a value is set, we notify that the property has changed to update the view. We do the same in the other properties. Now we define the commands for user interaction. In this case, a command to show the home view, a command to show the client view, and so on. We go defining the commands for each user action. Alright, so in the constructor, we initialize the commands using the view models command class, and generate the command's action methods. If you want, you can do some type of validation to execute or not the command, or we can simply execute the command, since in the case of showing the child views, it is not necessary to do any verification to be able to execute the command. Remember that the view models command class has two constructors, one constructor just to execute the command action, and another constructor to check if the command action can be executed and execute the action. This is a series of WPF and MVVM, so you should watch and download the previous project to do this tutorial as I said in the introduction. Well, let's continue. Now we implement the methods. For example, when the show customer view command is executed, we instantiate the customer view model in the current child view property, set the title of the child view, and set the icon of the child view. We do the same for the home view and any other child views you have. Well, once we are done implementing the action methods of the show child views commands, we set the default view, usually it's the home view, then we set the home view model as the current child view, or call the execute show home view command method, for whether to also set the other properties or actions. Alright, and that's it. Now we need to bind these properties to the main view properties, also bind the commands to the navigation menu button commands. So, we go to the design of the main view. We bind the content property to the current child view property of the view model. Similarly, we bind the content section's header text to the view model's caption property, and bind the header's icon to the view model's icon property. Remember that for this the view model must be set as the data context of the view, I don't do it now because the data context is already set in the previous tutorial. Well, if we execute the application, it should show the default view set, but it just shows the string of the home view model class, since there is nothing that sets that should show the appearance of the home view. So, we need to specify that when the home view model is set as the current child view, it should display the appearance of the home view. To do this, we define the data template in the window resources, in order to specify the appearance of the view model. So, we define a data template. In data type we set the view model, in this case the home view model, and then we set the presentation or appearance of the view model, in this case it should be the home view. The data template is basically used to specify or define the visual appearance of a data element in a content control or elements. It is for this reason and many other reasons, which I assume you have noticed, that WPF is said to be made for use with the MVVM pattern. Well, we do the same thing for all view models and child views. Okay, now the home view is shown as the default view. Finally, we bind the menu button commands to the view model commands to switch views when the button is clicked. So, in the dashboard button, we bind the command to the show home view command of the view model. Remember that the commands are executed when the button is clicked. Well, we do the same thing on all the buttons. Great, the views change correctly when selecting a button. Since running the app shows the home view as the default view, we should also set the home button as the default active button. Alright, that's it for this tutorial. There seems to be no problem. However, note that you can only open a single view, that is, each time the view is changed, the data entered in the text boxes, or some change in the form is reset. This is because every time a command is executed, a new instance is created in the current child view property. If you want to keep the view changes, you could store the view model instances in a collection list and add a close button in the child view in case you want to dispose of the view. Well, I hope you liked the tutorial. Until next time.